Hey, this is Matthew again. Today I thought we'd take a look at some of the similarities between Jesus and other pagan gods, because there's a lot of them. So I thought first we'd take a look at Horus. If any of you guys have looked on religioustolerance.com, there's a huge list of similarities between Horus and Jesus. I thought I'd just give you a few of them that I thought were actually really good and portrayed amazing similarities between the two of them. Okay, the first one, both of them were born from a virgin. I'm not sure if it's very accurate with Horus, because I know at the bottom it talks about how there is no evidence that he actually was, but Isis, I'm pretty sure, was a virgin. The next is that their father, both Horus and Jesus were the only begotten son of the respective main gods. Like Horus was the only begotten son of the god Osiris, and Jesus was the only begotten son of the god Jehovah. Their foster mother's names were both Mary, with Horus's mother's name being spelled Meri, and Jesus' mother's name is being spelled Mary. Horus's foster father was named Seb, which can also be translated as Joseph or Joseph. And as you know, Jesus' foster father's name was Joseph. Their foster father were both from royal descent. Also, their birth was heralded. Like Horus's birth was heralded by the morning star Cyrus, and Jesus' birth was heralded by the star in the east, which is unnamed, but it's a star nonetheless. Their birth was both announced by angels and witnessed by shepherds, and Horus's birth was later witnessed by 3 solar deities, while Jesus' birth was later witnessed by 3 wise men, the Magi. I'll get into that later when I talk about Zoroastrianism. They both had to flee their respective countries where they were born because of murders, or not murders, but like murder threats. And then they both had a rite of passage ritual at the age of 12. And then this is interesting. In both stories, there's a break in the data between the ages of 12 and 30. That's very interesting. And then at the age of 30, they both show up and be baptized in rivers by baptizers that end up being beheaded. That's a big one. Then later, Horus gets tempted by Sut, whose name is Set, which is also Seth, who was a precursor to the Christian concept of Satan. And as you know, Jesus was tempted by Satan in Palestine. They both had 12 disciples, and this is a very interesting one. Horus walked on water, cast out demons, healed the sick, restored sight to the blind, and, quote, stilled the sea by his power, end quote. And Jesus walked on water, cast out demons, healed the sick, restored sight to the blind, and, quote, ordered the sea to, quote, be still, end quote. A big thing here is that this is by command, not by an act. It's just a voice command. They both rose people from the dead. Raised, I guess is the correct word. Horus raised his father Osiris from the dead after he was killed by Seth, who was his archenemy throughout their myths. And Jesus raised Lazarus from the grave. And this is very interesting too. The site, like the city where Horus raised Osiris from the dead, was called Anu. It's an Egyptian city where rites of death, burial, and resurrection are enacted. And when the Hebrews were writing about this, they added the word Beth, which is house, to the word Anu to produce Beth Anu, which is also translated as the house of Anu. And U and Y were interchangeable in antiquity, as a specific word that religious tolerance uses, to become Bethany, which is mentioned in John 11. And the name of Lazarus also comes from Osiris. The Osiris is also called the Asar, which is translated in Hebrew as El Asar. The Romans added the prefix us to indicate a male name, which comes out with El Elasaris, and then over time the E was dropped and the S became a Z, and that's where you get Lazarus from. Their keynote addresses are both similar. Horace delivered his keynote address on the Sermon of the Mount, and as did Jesus. They both died by crucifixion, accompanied by 2 thieves, and were later buried in a tomb. I know the tomb thing isn't big, but whatever. They both descended into hell, and then were resurrected 3 days later. About the hell thing, I was talking to one of my Christian friends, and he agreed. He said that I was actually watching one of Soldier in God's Army's videos, and actually brought up a real point around all the satire. But he brought up the point that hell is where God is not, and when Jesus descended into hell, it wasn't hell, but it was. And I talked to one of my Christian friends, and he said that, in fact, calling hell where God isn't is actually in the Bible. So, what's up with that? I guess you could call that a question for theists if you wanted to. Back onto the similarities. And then the future for each of the deities, Horus and Jesus, is to reign for 1,000 years in the millennium. That's enough of the... That's most of the acts that I thought were similar. Here's some of the characteristics. They were both the savior of humanity. They were both God-men. And the common portrayal is very similar. The common portrayal of Horus is the Virgin Isis holding the infant Horus, and the common portrayal of Jesus is the Virgin Mary holding the infant Jesus. If you watched the Da Vinci Code, this is in the beginning when Langdon is giving his speech in the beginning. He shows the pictures, and one of the pictures is Osiris and Iris, or Horus and Iris. Sorry, and also both Horus and Jesus are associated with Pisces. I'm really going to really quick get on to Zoroastrianism. There's not much. The only real similarities there are the whole Magi thing. One big thing is there's a pagan belief that was common in Zoroastrianism that dates from 6th BCE. 6th century BCE. That cites that gold, frankincense, and myrrh are these precise materials to use when worshiping a god. So that's where I guess you get the whole Magi bringing frankincense, myrrh, and gold. Also, there's a quote on religionstolerance.org that is here's the quote. There is a Zoroastrianism belief that a son of Zoroaster will be born many years after his death by a virgin. This son will apparently rise from the dead and crush the forces of evil. Later Christians got rather excited about this apparent pagan prophecy of the coming of the Messiah. End quote. Also, Mithra was a god-man from Persia who was visited by 3 shepherds after his death, just as Jesus was. I'll go to my favorite god, personally. His name was Dionysus. He was the Roman, Greek. They're interchangeable. His name in Roman was Bacchus, but whatever. He was the Roman Greek god of wine and revelry. He also was basically the symbol of sacrifice and resurrection and death, like death and resurrection in Greek and Roman mythology. But both Dionysus and Jesus were born of virgins. I have to watch my time here. I have 30 seconds left. They're both born of virgins, and they both were they both turned wine into water, and they both were resurrected. This is the big thing because Dionysus every year in Greek and Roman mythology said that every year he was killed and then resurrected. He's one of the first resurrection stories in mythology. Before his rest, Dionysus was accompanied by 12 disciples for a Last Supper. That's all of the time I have for now. I might make a follow-up movie to clarify some things. But thanks for watching.